Okay. Mindset is currently my favorite topic in life, and I'll just share some of the things that I found helpful on this front. So I think for folks wearing CGM, for folks taking lots of finger sticks, there can be this judgment that comes with the numbers, feeling like the numbers, the numbers can prompt feeling like a failure. Curse words, just feeling frustrated with diabetes, like an upsetting number can like ruin your day. So I think we do place a lot of importance on blood sugars and diabetes. And of course, the result of that can be that people are really hard on themselves when the numbers aren't where they want them to be. And I think this is probably one of the things I'm the most proud of ever making, which was just a list of what things affects blood sugar, based on the research, based on personal experience, based on experiences of others. The first article I wrote on this was several years ago. It was 22, and I updated it to 42. And now I kind of think there's probably like more like 100. But this is kind of the current list, and you can see just how complicated it is to live with diabetes. There's so many variables that affect blood sugar. You'll see some of the variables like some increased blood sugar and decreased blood sugar. Like it totally depends on the context. Like high intensity exercise could do either of those. Alcohol could do either of those. And this to me is what makes diabetes deeply frustrating, deeply challenging, is how complicated it is, how much just complete shenanigans we have to deal with every day. And to me, it's the real antidote to this experience, which is a kind of bringing a self-compassion and an acceptance of complexity to living with this disease, which is, this is hard. This is super, super hard. And it's not just that there are 42 factors and okay, fine. You can't measure all these factors. You don't know which of the factors is in play at any given time. Like if you think back to that chart I showed at the start of the presentation with that huge spike in the middle of the day, I don't know what drove that spike. And you can't measure all these factors. You don't know what factors are in play at any given time. And as I'll share in a couple slides, the factors interrelate. It's not just one factor is in play at a given time. I mean, this whole basket of things is part of the context of living with diabetes. Sometimes I liken it to a super complicated stereo system. And there's 42 knobs on that stereo system. And you try to get the settings right, and the output of those, the sound quality is what your blood sugar is. And you get the settings really wrong, and you got high or low blood sugars. But the settings reset every day. Like the knobs, you have to kind of fiddle with the knobs every day. And you don't have access to every knob. So not every knob on this stereo is one that you have control over. It's just going to kind of do its own thing. Something like infusion set issues. I mean, you don't really have control over whether, you don't have total control over whether an infusion set kind of goes well or not. And I think that's just another layer of how challenging diabetes is. So to me, a lot of the mindset of living with this disease is accepting how complicated it is and that things are not going to go perfectly and on road all the time. And that's just part of the deal, which is really tough. So for me, thinking of blood sugar numbers as data, it's neutral information to help make decisions, to help me learn. There's no good or bad grades. I don't even really use the word tests anymore because I think test implies a grade, and grade implies you're either you're an A student or you're a failure. And I think we have to really get away from that to kind of take the judgment and blame and self-criticism out of the blood sugar data. And that I think is really important, because if you're checking your blood sugar consistently and the numbers are really high, and you feel like a failure, you feel like the tests aren't coming out well, then I think it's natural to kind of want to just stop checking, because who likes feeling like a failure all the time? And I think if instead we frame this as, this is data, this is neutral information, this helps make us smarter about what's happening, what's working, what's not working, and what we might change, I think that changes the conversation around CGM and finger sticks in a way that's much more productive and empowering. kind of like a speedometer in a car, or almost like a pilot flying a plane and looking at the data in the cockpit and saying, oh, hey, the plane looks like it's a little bit off course. Let's adjust where we're flying, rather than the pilot looking at the cockpit data and saying, I'm a terrible pilot. I'm a completely worthless pilot. I might as well just go sit in the back of the plane and let someone else take care of this. No pilot would do that, because the data is information to make decisions and understand what's happening. And I think of CGM or finger sticks in the same way. And then, yeah, this is just this point that all these factors are interrelated. So this to me is a simple example, but it just shows it. So, let's say I'm feeling really tired one day, and I, have a very late dose of caffeine to kind of make it through the day. We know that caffeine hangs around for at least 8 hours. And so it's very likely that if I have, a 4 p.m. cup of coffee, that's going to make it harder to sleep. And so I might get kind of a really too short night of sleep that night. And of course, that when I get too little sleep, for one, I'm much more likely to be stressed the next day, just because of how too little sleep impacts stress. And I'm also more likely to get sick, of course, because sleep impacts the immune system. And so that, those factors interrelate. And then, of course, if I'm stressed, I'm much and feeling tired the next day, I'm much less likely to exercise, because if I'm stressed and I have a busy work day, like it's just going to feel harder to exercise. And so, of course, those factors relate. And then, but for me, exercise often like makes me feel energetic. It kind of wakes me up if I'm feeling kind of low. And so that might make it more, not exercising might make it more likely that I have more caffeine that day. And of course, that cycle will repeat. And I think all these sorts of circular causality is super common in diabetes, because how many variables affect things and how complicated this disease is. It's just like this every day. And then the cycle repeats. So this is kind of a related point. I made this graphic with emojis. I really like it, because it kind of represents my different moods and feeling states at different blood sugars. So when I'm in range, I feel like that is how I am as a person. It is my level of optimism and energy and excitement and joy. Like that's kind of Adam, and I'm kind of a different person at different blood sugars. And of course, this also affects like how much I want to do things, what decisions I make in the moment, how I treat those around me. And so there's a relationship there between blood sugars and feeling states or moods that I think is important, and sometimes isn't obvious until someone, I think, gets on CGM and kind of can see that relationship and pattern. So I think it's just important. The book is free. That's intentional, because I did it in my spare time, and we launched it on Diatribe. And I thought, my goal here is to get it to as many people as possible. So it's free to download there. The audiobook is free on YouTube. On Amazon, it's $6, which is the cost pricing. So Diatribe and I don't make any revenue off of that. And we just want it to be accessible. You can get on the Diatribe email list at that link. That's also free. And yeah, just, if I could leave you with 2 takeaways, I think one is just remember this, to not forget about bright spots. Everyone has strengths. Everyone has things that are working, even if they're small. And the other is, don't forget about how complicated it is to live with this disease, and remind your patients of that, because I think that can get lost sometimes. You're welcome to email me at this address. I don't check it that often, but I do check it. And yeah, those are the links for Diatribe.